Hi, everyone who following the conference. I'm Nemanja Milicevic, and I'm a teacher assistant at Faculty of Architecture in Podgorica. I'm one of author who do this paper. Another co-author is docent Dr. Ema Aliković-Jašarović. She is a professor also on Faculty of Architecture in Podgorica. I will try to introduce the paper that speaks about ritual void in the sacred architecture of Montenegro. First, I want to talk about abstract shortly. The sacral architecture was always aimed to ritual the space, which gained a special form for making the void. Common to all religion, the need to create the grandiose, some kind of sacred void, which achieves the mystification and the special experience of the religion space. However, I think the contemporary realization of sacred architecture points to the need to a redefinition of the sacral void. This paper, in this sense, the goal of this work is analysis the similar scale of the sacral void, which is present is a numerous example of the sacral architecture in Balkan. This paper will try to find several the relevant examples in the territory of Montenegro, which will be proceed. So the whole idea of emptiness remains the consequences of the religion, cultural, but also contextual condition. There is some key words that connecting with this paper. Very important theoretical aspect is based on the focus of the few selected examples that the sacred architecture in Montenegro created the response of the trends in modernistic and the brutalistic architecture. The two example was the Catholic Church in Podgorica. This is the Catholic Church in Podgorica, author Timer Vrkljan Kostulović, and another Catholic Church in Nikšić, architect Vukajlović, and which recognize the need of the proof establishment, the traditional postulated, and by creating the sacral world void. In this paper was a critical review of the contemporary trends of hyperproduction of the sacred buildings in Montenegro, but which do not aim to re-examine the contemporary architectural response only on the volumetric overreading in the order to mark the space and create the new identity of the city. I will talk about the symbolic veil of the sacral void. First, in the following, the overriding the psychological perception of the sacred emptiness in these three religion object will be present. Firstly, Romanic basilic have a special dynamic in the proceeds toward the altar, while the culmination in the high accompanied by the lighting concerted the altar space. I think the change of the heights, but also the transition from another hall changed the perception of the experience. So another way, on the doctrinal special concept of the sacred space, which creates a specific experience of the space, which is such divide according to the hierarchy function, but also ritual. You see these rooms, so that the effect additionally changed the elements, detail, ornaments, but also painting, which providing all visual and special experience, which do not imply the concept of emptiness. It's primarily symbolic potential. On another situation, we have Islamic example. The God in Islamic philosophy cannot be associated with a certain time, space, material, because it's presence and comparative with omnipresent. The center of the holiest place for Islam is absolutely void. So you see the void inside the building. The void is the fact and the fate, and you in Islamic object you can't personification and try to divinity in any object of the worship. So in order to better understand the concept of the sacral void, it's important to look back in original perceptive space and try to see that we can conclude the sacral architecture didn't not originally proceed with the cultural elements of the religious space that we know today. It believed that the first Christian church was actually in house by the first Christian, and one of the first Christian meeting place was the house of the Saint Peter. In that way, we talk about the needing for cleaning sacral architecture of ornaments and reduce to complete experience of the ritual space. One of the good examples and the reconstruction is the Church of the Jesus in Cologne, which eliminate all detail and painted wall. Today just simplified, and they create the emptiness. We see the altar is simplified. Today that space represents the completely sacred and well sacral void, which stands with two organs, and we see the above the all altars detail that made which made with stone. Author is Eduardo Chilida, that present the sculptural but also sacral response, but also the space respect the place and respect emptiness. So this is the another example of the sacral architecture, but is based on another concept of the building, the sacral void. It's made it on another how I say, another followings or the steps. The inner void of the space formed with a mold, and they carefully create the void. Firstly, they create the void, then put the concrete on around it. After burning all that mold inside, the only void left. The only void left. So this is the good primer how to create firstly void, then another to create the volumetric. Another example is the sacral architecture built the principle of the sacral void at Ando, sacral void, the Church of the Lighting, 99. It's a proposition that create the emptiness additional mystified by the cross. So we see the cross is the empty, the body is empty, so the cross release the light inside from outside, so create the natural light. Also, this is the simplification of the holy place. Near our country in Croatia, Alvaro Siza give us the new concept of the sacral ritual spaces. They project the Capel in Croatia, so he similarly do the sacral void, the empty space. Important and interesting thing is in Islamic world, Zlatko Ugljen generated the empty space. They create the sacred voice and create some symbolic value in Islamic architecture. Is represent numerous architecture, Zlatko Ugljen, and stands out in area which is impressive White Mosque. White Mosque is the one of the first powerful mosque in our region, and another newest, perhaps mostly, I think, contemporary Islamic architecture in region is the mosque in Ljubljana, Bev Perović architects, which is the part of the complex Islamic religion and cultural center. Unconventional, responsible answer for the void into the space. We see the power of ritual emptiness reading in the architectural spatial experience. In the whiteness, transparency, cubic mass additionally increase the power of this section, the light, but also acoustics, and change the effects, the ritual experience, where is the monumentally the cubic mass dominating in urban image in that zone. So we see the transparenting the cloth dome, which is symbolic the sky and the God. I think the good example is contemporary Orthodox Lucian architecture in many territory of Serbia, only commemorating Capel dedicated to Genocid second wall to took the place in Kraljevo out of team Spasoje Krunić and Miloš Đurašinović. And previous analysis point the problems approach the interpretation of the ritual word in the Orthodox Church, which is the church hardly to divide the traditional shams. However, in these recent years, there is attempted to reinterpret the architecture of the Orthodox Church in the modern way. That's very hard job, and is I think a representative generation of second modernism do the architect Spasoje Krunić, that he create a model with a simple form, but in a very specific way to refine the structure with details and the bold use for different building materials. In order to understand the power of sacred space, it's important to look the example like this on this first and another picture, where is after the dissipating the space of the certain historical reason, it made the ritual value of the space if there are any traces of elements that build the space, walls, a special frame, it will be suggested in the wall, which is directly related to previous experience. In this sense, the void reminds present elements to regard the missing envelope. You see how that people recognize the space now. I think this is the sacred architecture in Montenegro. You see, I ask myself, architecture of emptiness or volume, you know, because since the communist state in the system, it was the in force of these years, sacred architecture was not the list of priority. And what's more, is in construction was often hindered. For that reason, communist anti-religion principles influencing the stagnation of the construction of sacred architecture. Nevertheless, several such realization of sacred architecture point to fact that the building politics improves the architecture concept, which is the period could only be answered by the Catholic Church. You know, you see the power on emptiness in the middle photo. Another church is church in Nikšić that I mentioned on the start. Another very specific example of sacred architecture. You see the liberation from details and any unnecessary things, and great connection with the Catholic Church in Podgorica. So that is our best what we have, but everything stopped. And then it's not done for a long time. Tina priested the temple in Podgorica. After the breaking idea of socialism city, Montenegro Montenegro city start to expanding and expressing the crisis of several levels in reflection of this city through the different aspects. But it's very context of these topics. It's interesting to see how the social hypocrisy accumulated the conflicts and restoring the religious ambience to escalating, and it's important to look the dimension of the newly creating buildings, which is influence to create of the spatial volumes to the city. Contemporary trends in the construction of sacred architecture. This is the Church of Christ Resurrection in Podgorica. So another things, so actually these things open the new field, which is the neo-sacral identity of the city. Everything's differs in a couple of years, very interesting things. The way of which religious subjects change the urban images of the city is the best demonstrated by example in case of three religious subjects creating similar period in Bar, city in the south of Montenegro. Along the city of Bar, now like the multinational environment, where is dominate three religions. So in that way, the social crease is the manifest of by expressions of the constructions of these religious buildings in just built in few years. You see Islamic Cultural Center in Bar, that is on the first image. Second image is the church Saint Jovan Vladimir, and the third photo is Catholic Cathedral Sveti Petar Apostle. So everything differs in the couple of the years. And on the end, I think the ritual emptiness represent the special concept in the secular architecture, which is such does not necessarily depend in our dimension, but dynamics and special frameworks based on the symbolic postulates of all religions. Secular architecture, I think, needs to re-examination of the concept, which is and essentially related of the modernization and architectural traditional perception. And in this sense of the question of the sacred void necessarily arise toward the possible answer in 1917 in the context of the modernist attitudes of the city. Two successful examples of the sacred architecture were created, talking about Catholic Church in Podgorica and Nikšić. However, I think the Montenegro contemporary architecture practice in secular architecture records opposite process, whose conceptual attitudes the aimed and in creating the architecture of volume, not architecture of the emptiness. That's the big problem of this paper. So in this sense, the focus is not to rethinking the transformation the secular architects, is just to build the architecture of emptiness, of the void. In this sense, contrary the reference example from the world practice, secular architecture in Montenegro is used to demonstrate the power through the volume, where the ritual void, contrary to size, is not to establish the principle to space creation. Therefore, I think it can be concluded in the sacral architecture and is not and it coordinates with contemporary trends, but is very conservative. That's the truth. On that hand, I think the sacred architecture in Montenegro is constantly to basic religious principles, very social conflicting. From the special aspect point of view, it's very destructive to the modern city. So I think in the end, the story about this point is to the church in Montenegro try to make architecture of volume, but they not do the what is the main problem is the void or architecture of sacred spaces. So they need to create emptiness firstly, and then to create the volume on envelope. Thank you for attention. Big guys from the Montenegro.